Welcome to this second video about the Dungbeetle. In this video we will go through the installation of the DLL version of Dungbeetle, and then we will take a look at the in-editor server. It starts automatically when you install it. Here is the game that I'm going to use during the demonstration. It doesn't have Dungbeetle yet, and the first thing we're going to do is to install from files directly. The other thing we could do is install it from a Unity package, but it's mostly the same. So I have files here, and I'll just drop them into Unity, like that. And now the in-editor server has started running, and it has created two files for me. This config file, which is used for most connection details, and this resources file, which is included in builds, and it has all the details that's necessary for the build to report bugs and nothing else. So this is the menu that you need to know about. Under Window, Dungbeetle, and here are all the Dungbeetle windows listed. And we're going to look at the in-editor server this time. The in-editor server writes a log continuously, and for everything that it does, it writes a line or two here. So let me just demonstrate that by opening the overview window. This window now asks for all the bugs in the project, and we can see here the server says that it got a request for all unassigned bugs and all the developers in the project. So let's talk about the configuration. There is a window for all the configurations under Dungbeetle editor connection config. It has 4 different tabs, but the default tab is a lot more important than the others. For each field in the default config, there's one setting that can be overridden by the other subsections of this config. So I can set, for example, that game builds will use a different port for connecting than, like, say, editor windows. And by editor windows I mean like this overview, and actually this connection config connects to the server as well to get the list of the projects that it has. And now in this tab here we can see that this got a circle instead of an arrow. So a circle means that this value is defined here. Up arrows mean that they inherit from the default page. Let's say this says localhost. Let's say I changed it, like to beetlecircus.com, and now this should be inherited by the others, and indeed it is. And there's one important thing in the editor server tab, that you can turn off the editor server, and for long-term projects that's what you want to do, because of course you want to share one server and not have one for each developer. So this is like a demo mode. Yeah, and let's go through the different kinds of fields here. So the domain is for clients to find the server. This overview window is one kind of client, but game builds is a different kind of client. They all need this field to find the server, and of course the port. This is just a regular network port. And they encrypt their data, so clients need a public key and the servers need private keys. It's used to set up an encrypted connection, but it's not used to encrypt the bulk of the data. It's just to send the initial symmetric key. The reporter password is needed for any client to gain the privilege of reporting bugs. And the developer password is needed for a client to gain any other privilege, like say deleting bugs or assigning bugs to other developers. And the last one is project ID. So project ID is important because the server can contain lots of sets of bugs, and you want one for each project you're working on mostly, and it's also stored once per project. So the easiest thing is to just have one per project, but you can do other configurations if you want to. I can see here that the network connection has failed somehow, and I could just push this button to make it try again. Yeah, it's because the domain isn't valid. So let's go back to localhost and try again. Yeah, so this is the project that is on the server now. Yeah, I'm going to show you the assets that store these settings. The projects we already talked about, so let's just take a look. So each field in the config is a scriptable object, and each scriptable object is stored in the config file. So this is a file that has lots of scriptable objects in it. And I can use this button here, which says unhide asset parts, to show them in the project view if I want to. Let's just do that. Here, scriptable objects. Some of them are sets of others. Like default config contains like references to many of the others. And some of them, like default port, is just a value. Let's hide that again. This button opens the config window. And the file for builds works the same way. It has a link to a scriptable object, and that scriptable object is also stored in config. So it actually doesn't store things, except that since Unity includes stuff through references, it will be included in builds, but it won't contain private keys and other server related data. One thing you might want to know is that if you lose this connection, the builds won't be able to connect anymore. And connecting this is a bit hard, but you can go to here, config, unhide the asset parts. And if you have two inspectors, you can do this. Maybe, yeah. Let's try. Yeah, we need the other project view here. One column layout. And now we can actually connect the reporter config again, like that. Or I could just push that button and it does it automatically. Yep. So now you should be able to set up your project and connect to your editor server. Good luck.